Okay, my name's Bill Hughes from Wetzel County. I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for inviting me. And I appreciate hearing from Nadia, Eric, and particularly from Carl. And the main reason, what Carl just had to say, this, hey Steve. This doesn't always work. What Carl had to say gave me some details about how Pennsylvania is dealing with some of the waste issues. Obviously, after 7 years of following this in Wetzel County, West Virginia, I'm primarily interested and familiar with the West Virginia rules. And this is not working again.
I think just speak up. We can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, I will try it without that. Okay, I have followed drilling operations, shale gas operations for over 7 or 8 years in Wetzel County. Washington County here has had drilling for 3 or 4 years longer. And I would think between Greene County and Washington and Monroe County, Ohio, and Wetzel, Tyler, we've seen all possible problems that could happen with shale gas operations. But primarily my focus has been on West Virginia. Now this is my personal assumption here. Shale gas guys are good guys. They obey the rules, they obey the regs when the regulations are clear, uniformly applied, and they're occasionally accompanied with ruthless enforcement with teeth and big dollars. It's no different than you and I. Someone here, I'm sure, when they drove here tonight, drove faster than the speed limit. I mean, you might have maybe. But the point is, if you see state policemen out there, you've got enough sense to slow down. The state's responsible for making the rules and the laws and the regulations and enforcing them. Gas guys aren't. That's not their responsibility. So I think this is where we need to go. Okay. Now, I'm going to show you something here that's insider information. You must keep it within this room because, you know, if you don't, it's really hard to tell where it might get spread. So we can't proceed unless we can't proceed. So who made that go forward? All right. If this wasn't true, none of us would be here. A little bit of heavy metals, a little bit of this and that, we don't care about. If it weren't for the fact that Marcellus is radioactive, we wouldn't be talking about this. Now, what's happened though for years, about the gas operations had a rather massive PR campaign to say it's all just dirt and rock. Norms, normally occurring, everything has radiation. All right, let's look at how we know this. This has been known by geologists for at least 35 years, and I've read multiple white papers from scientific journals, and some of them are just hardly in print anymore. And so that's one area where it's been reported. Leachate, as any landfill guy knows, that's garbage use. Liquid that percolates down through landfills. Marshall University, now maybe Marshall University in Huntington carries no weight here north of Mason-Dixon line. But the point is, West Virginia legislature told the West Virginia DEP, study this stuff. So Marshall University had a 2,600-page report, came out last July 1, that took me months and months and months to go through. They use gamma logs to find the stuff. And drill waste loads occasionally trip some of the alarms. Now this, I'm going to go through 3 fairly simple, basic, and somewhat old sources. It's important for me that you realize this. None of this is very little of this is my opinion. This is what I've come across as other professionals documenting. There was a study that was published in in 1981, but I think it was done from 1978 to 79. But it was this In-Cliff Minerals, Eastern Shale Gas Project, just a vertical well. The core drillings are still sealed, not sealed, but still boxed up at WVU. West Virginia, the geology has them. So what's said in there is that it's easily distinguishable on the gamma radiation and the density. So they were not using traditional radioactivity units. They used API, American Petroleum Institute, a standard they had down in Texas. They calibrated their instruments to that, and they were saying, well, this is high. This is 230 to 300. All the other upper Devonian shales were done in the 80 to 90 range. This was 2 or 3 times stronger. And then when you drill down through the Devonian shales and you bottom out at the Marcellus into the Onondaga limestone, and then it says, well, all of a sudden radiation's gone. So it's really clearly marked where the Marcellus is. The other 2 studies here, one was done in 2011, but it was referring to a study done in both the United States and Europe where the radium-226, now that's the primary isotope of concern because it's water soluble. It went both in European shales and also in the Texas Panhandle, 5,000 picocuries per liter. However, it says the Marcellus is exceeding 10,000. This other one was done at number 3 here in New York 12 years ago. The basal unit of the Hamilton, Marcellus, the formation is highly radioactive and regionally extensive. Now, if you read more and more of these things, it really is in the sense of sky is blue, grass is green, Marcellus is radioactive, and alligators are dangerous. It's brain dead taken for granted in these texts. So we can set that issue aside, but 3 years ago, this was an uphill battle to convince our legislators that it wasn't just dirt and rock. Okay. Let's move on. Overview of some shale gas drilling. You've all seen drill rigs. This is one from a few weeks ago, really. An AQT well pad down in Wetzel County. Just a typical shale gas operation, but this one's drilling into the Utica, which is a little different. This is a sketch I did a year or so ago. And the main distinction, the reason why this is important, is the distinction between the vertical bore and the horizontal bore. A lot of studies were done on a horizontal well pad, and they came up with some conclusions about the waste characterization of horizontal waste material. Unfortunately, their samples came from the vertical. So now it's really important because you want to study the waste that's of concern. The vertical bore, from here down to where they start curving, is more benign. Not benign. It's more benign, a little less toxic than what's done here in the shale. Now, if we want to look at benign, this is the less toxic. Now, as our legislatures were trying to tell me 3 years ago, the DEP was trying to tell me this. This is just dirt and rock. Now, granted, there's some sometimes diesel base and other fluids that are used for drilling muds. So it's not really, you don't want to put this as compost on your garden. But this stuff here is dirt and rock. That stuff's not. That's drill cuttings from the horizontal bore. Clearly different. It just, all you need to do is see the difference between brown and black. So if you do, as I've done for day after day after day, for, just stand right next, some of these well pads are, I could stand 100 feet away from where they're drilling because they were built right next to a public road. Really convenient for my camera. So you can see this very clearly. It's nothing, this is not unusual. This is right before they haul them off to the landfill. Okay, why is this waste a problem? We've covered some of that with some of the previous speakers. Drill cuttings, produced water, flow back, all radioactive, toxic, hazardous, and a lot of it. Carl gave you some numbers about the total tonnages. Now, this is what it looks right before it would get delivered to Carl or some other landfill. It comes off the shaker table, goes through a centrifuge, gets the water squished out of it, not the water, but the drilling fluids and other formation fluids squished out of it, put into a tub like this. That's the same black stuff. This then is put into this dump truck or a roll-off, a sealed roll-off box, or possibly roll-off box with a canvas top. And then it's hauled off to our favorite landfill. Now, if it was one dump truck load like this every now and then, I don't think we'd be here either. But these are the boxes that are taken there. This is them lined up at landfill in Wetzel County. And now we get down to the crux of the problem. I don't know what this number is now because I've just lost track of it. This shows 4 landfills, Ohio County, Wetzel County, Brooke County, and down to Parkersburg, which is the Wood County one at the bottom here. At that time, it was about 1.5 million tons. I don't think my number here is 750,000 tons, include 2016. Carl alluded to the fact, which is true, that through 2012, 13, 14, 15 leveled off, started dropping, and there was a bit of a dormant period because of the price of natural gas being down to 2,000 per 1,000 cubic feet. Well, that's beginning to go back up. New permits are being issued now, so this is likely to increase. But this 750 is one landfill in 3 or 4 years in West Virginia. The other critical part, and we'll address this in a little bit, is the radium-226 is part of it's a daughter product of uranium. It's water soluble. That's not good because it can get lots of places any planet there's water. But as you see, Brooke County is right on this Ohio River here. Short Creek near Wheeling, Ohio River. Wetzel Counties, this is about maybe a mile and a half. And the unfortunate part of this particular landfill, it does not send its leachate or effluent to a publicly owned treatment works. It gets treated with, to a minor degree, on site at Wetzel County, and then goes right to the river. Downriver then you have Wood County or Parkersburg, but right below Wetzel County you have Sistersville. It still drinks the Ohio River. It does not have any deep wells. I don't know if this is a minor problem or a major problem. That's part of it. We don't know. We don't test the effluent for any radiological isotopes yet. To a degree, West Virginia is being systematically ignorant, willfully ignorant about some of this stuff. If you're not familiar with leachate, there's our leachate. So if in place of, in your little basket of coffee grounds, you put in some drill cuttings, and this is been around for many, many decades. The TCLP test, the toxicity characterization leasing protocol, where you assemble a 100-foot deep column of something on a 4 or 6-inch PVC pipe, and you pour hydrochloric acid or just still water, you pour fluid down through it and say, hey, what drips out the bottom? What leaches out of the landfill? So on the left side is of course how this might become a problem for municipal landfills. And this, of course, fresh water, coffee grounds, fresh coffee, and so on. So this fluid can be any of the fluids. The rainfall that lands on the landfill, the formation water, the fluids and the brines that are in the drill cuttings. All this percolates down through, eventually becomes leachate, and now we took what was in safe storage 7,000 feet down. Now it's our problem, and we're not sure yet what to do with this. All right, this next slide is, we could spend an hour talking about this. I could wait a minute or two because I've been rattling on pretty quick. But I assembled this a year or two ago when Marshall University was charged by the DEP they said, study this stuff. What's the connection between drill waste and how do we get down here to drinking water? What's the risk? What do we know about this and what don't we know? And so this is the whole thing. Drill waste to landfills, becomes leachate. Now, West Virginia, to its credit, for 4 years or more has been testing its leachate for gross alpha, gross beta, radium-226, radium-228, and strontium-90. So they've been testing the leachate. Now they've been using the wrong test procedure. Carl addressed that too. They're using a clean, believe it or not, clean drinking water protocol. Just dumb. Maybe 4 years ago it wasn't, but come on, we know better than that. So it gives you a lot of gross air besides gross alpha. So this radioactive can't be filtered out. It goes to the water treatment. The effluent from the treatment plant goes to surface streams. Now is where you're affecting aquatic life and or drinking water sources. And of course, a lot of us pretended that fishes don't matter. Well, if it had teeth like that, I would respect it. But the rest of the fish, I don't too. The point is, there's a whole life string of aquatic life that depends on high quality water. Okay, what do we know? Now, keep in mind this is extracted from 2,600 pages of the Marshall University report on leachate and waste in surface waters. So the conclusions I have here are theirs, not mine. I've just assembled them and compiled them. Okay. They said drill cuttings are toxic to plants. Well, that's a bit of a no-brainer to me, but leachate is also toxic to plants and invertebrates. There's radioactive compounds in leachate. We've known that. I have a file cabinet filled with leachate reports. Long-term studies have not been done. That last one, to me, is pretty important. We are flying blind. As far as I know, never in the history of the United States have we knowingly put this level of radioactive waste in our local garbage dump. This is, we have no idea what we're doing. We have no idea what the long-term consequences of this are. We just haven't done this. I think it's a problem. So they couldn't find any white papers. If any of you have research or some different academic backgrounds, first you can do, if you have a master's thesis, you come up with your theme that you're going to look into, and you do a literature review. What's out there so you don't prove what's known. You try to look at a new angle to it. That hasn't been done yet. Okay. Some of the comments earlier were, of course, on Pennsylvania regs. This particular excerpt here is the section of 33 CSR, which is Code of State Regulations. Okay, from the Marshall report, we know the shell is radioactive. Radium's water soluble. Radioactivity is in the landfill leachate, and we're testing leachate. Now that's good so far. And I think it's probably better than what Ohio's been doing. However, at this point, West Virginia does not require drill cuttings to be tested for any radioactive isotopes ever anywhere. Now, this is what I mean by West Virginia choosing to stay systematically, willfully ignorant. Ignorant doesn't mean stupid. Ignorant means I'm choosing to not find out. We should be testing the horizontal bore, come up with some good representative samplings, doing the 28 to 30 day hold in a sealed container using the high purity germanium gamma spec test. Anyway, so this is what's required. TCLP for metals, TCLP volatiles and semi-volatiles, total petroleum hardness carbon, but there's no radioactivity test required. Okay, but we do in West Virginia just recently have, as Carl mentioned in Pennsylvania landfills, goalpost monitors. We'll show a picture of them later. Okay, some additional statements in the Marshall Report. Marcellus Shale has higher concentrations of radioactivity. Drill cuttings contain those compounds. The radium isotopes are water soluble. They're in the leachate. Radium-226 has a half-life of 1,600 years. And the Marshall Report says landfill liners will leak. Now, if I concede, for the benefit of argument, that Mr. Carl's landfill is perfectly designed, and I'm not trying to be sarcastic here, perfectly designed, excellent leachate collection system, double synthetic liner, compacted clay beneath that, and let's speculate that these liners, a man-made material, will last 600 years. I sort of doubt that, but for purposes of, what do we do for the next 1,000 years after that? Our great-great-great-grandkids might wonder. 1,600-year half-life is a bit of a problem for a water-soluble material being put into a landfill when landfill liners will eventually leak. All right, these are some other general observations from the Marshall Report. No existing studies. Little or no empirical data on risk. Studies of long-term exposure to unconventional natural gas development have not been conducted. Landfill liners will leak. This sounds to me like a massive guinea pig experiment, all of which we are participating in, by choice or not. This is a massive public health concern, but we don't know to what degree, and we don't know for how long. And I'm not saying it's worse than every waste that comes out of any industrial plant along the High River watershed, but I'm saying we don't know yet. So the we don't know part is the issue that I have concern with. Well, what don't we know? I'll give you a little hint. What's in the trucks? Now, this is either leftover cherry or cranberry or something, I'm not really sure, but the point is, this is red residual waste, and the only thing I know for certain is it comes in small, medium, and large. It says at the bottom, if you can't see it, what's residual waste? I have $100. Anyone that could tell me with a high degree of certainty what is residual? I see it on trucks all over the place every day, trucks by the hundreds. What is residual? Well, whatever it is, we got lots of it. All kinds of trucks, all kinds of sizes, driving all kinds of speeds, sometimes left to center. So all this residual here and residual and residual. Okay, what is it? Well, I don't know, but it's probably similar to this stuff. What is this? Well, this is not leftover from a dairy farm hollowed milk. This is fresh. Well, no, this is brine, but no, this is brine, but this is fresh. Fresh brine, fresh brine. This is not last week's stale leftover brine. This is first class fresh stuff. This is stupid. The next day, there's going to be a different driver in this truck, and I guarantee you, they're going to forget what's in that truck. We're just asking for a problem with this stuff. Okay, speaking of goalpost monitors, these are at what's called a landfill, and I have sort of sarcastically referred to them as window dressing. They are useful for certain isotopes at certain strengths. I think Pennsylvania's had them for a lot longer. because of 3 Mile Island and the waste products that it generated. These will only indicate above a certain level of gamma emitting isotopes. And they don't measure radium, they don't distinguish. Well, what we did is I contacted, a colleague contacted the manufacturer, which is frequently Ludlam, who responded back and just said, it will not detect radium, radium-226. Portions of it may be detected, but they can't quantify it. It's just, this is a certain activity, as Carl said, milligrams per hour. Radium contains alpha-beta particles. Alpha and beta can be stopped by a piece of cardboard or canvas cover on a truck. The medical waste of iodines 131s and silver 110 and some of these other things that might be in adult diapers and other types of medical waste coming from a hospital or a patient at home, these are high gamma emitting. They're designed to kill cells because that's what they're there for, to kill cancer cells frequently. It will pick those up right now, but it's not going to pick up radium-226 unless it's highly concentrated as part of filter media, filter socks, sludges, and so on. Then you're talking about a much higher concentration of it than the routine 226 you can get off of drill cuttings. Any other radioactivity to worry about? Yeah, radon. It's a big problem. There's no safe level. It's the second cause of lung cancer next to tobacco. No one tests for radon anywhere, at any landfill, any well pad ever. Now it sounds like it's not a big deal because with a half-life of radium-222, which is a daughter product of radium-226, the radon-222, is like 4 days. Wow, okay, I'll come back next week, all right? 4 days later, no big deal. But the problem is we have an infinite supply of radium-226 that's constantly creating radon-222. Now, in an open air, not a problem. But the point is we don't know what this issue is either. We don't test for radon. Where do we go from here? Well, I referred to in passing about this. The issue here is total dissolved solids. If you have clean drinking water, the publicly owned water plants are required to test for radioactive isotopes, and they have the 901.1, 902, 903, and 4 series of EPA test protocols. Well, that's what West Virginia has been using to test leachate. Leachate is sludgy materials, and that doesn't mean like suspended solids like you would mud or silt in a stream. This is dissolved solids. So when you have high quantities of total dissolved solids, anything over 500 parts per million, they interfere with trying to use a clean drinking water, so it gives you nonsense. The uncertainty factors, if you look at the picocures per liter, might be like 18.9 to 20 with an uncertainty of 20 picocures. It's just silly information. So they had maybe meant well, but the point is the wrong methods are being used. Drill cuttings weren't required to be tested. Leachate's radioactive. Goalposts will not likely detect concentrated radium. I should have concentrated in here. It might detect some radium. And some of the studies did not come up with a good samples. All right, that's about it. What do we need to do? Get this right? A lot more work to be done. Start using proper test protocol. Test the horizontal bore. And this is going to be a long-lasting problem. And we must accurately identify all risks to public waters of the tri-state area. That's all.